This is Carola DeVille, and you're watching Inkwife TV. My client had a Superman tattoo that was, I guess, about 15 years old or so. So it was pretty faded, and he wanted to cover it up with something. He wanted to use a phoenix specifically. I really like Japanese style tattoos, and they lend themselves very well to the phoenix design. So I suggested that we go with a Japanese style piece, and he liked it. So that's what we went with. I love covering tattoos using those Japanese style tattoos for cover-ups because they're very dark. They have a lot of darkness in the background and a lot of shadows and very dramatic coloring. So I've used those as a cover-up many times on both males and females. You can make them, they're not just masculine, you can also make them very feminine too. But they do a great job for covering up even really dark pieces. They do a good job as a cover-up. Now to talk a little bit about the tools that I'm using. I'm running this outline with an 11 round liner, and I've got my machine running at 7 volts. When I'm lining with a 5 round liner, I will run my machine lower because the thinner tip of the 5 round liner will puncture the skin more easily than a thick 11 round liner. So I can run my machine a little bit higher and it'll hit the skin harder but still stay in the upper layers of the skin and not dig too deep. If you turn your machine up really high, then you're likely to dig a trench in your client's arm. But if you keep your machine around 7 volts and run your hand slow and steady, it will put a perfect line at the exact depth that you need into the skin, and it'll look like you just drew on it with a Sharpie. Like you won't hardly be able to see any change in the skin texture at all. It just looks like a Sharpie if you set your needle depth and the speed just right. So here we are at the end of our outline, and the next thing I did is I got my 15 curved mag out and began to shade in the black parts, the black background in the clouds behind the phoenix. Most of what he wanted was for filler in the background was flames and smoky, cloudy look, but he didn't want all of the bird to be solid red. So as we get into some colors later in the video, you will see what we did with that. But for the background, it's mostly smoke and flames. Right now I'm showing you the regular speed that I'm going as I am shading. Most of this video has been sped up, but this part I'm showing you how fast I actually go when I'm shading. I believe I was running my machine at around 5 or 5.2 volts when I am using that 15 curved mag because I want it to be very soft. I'm not using a gray wash to do this shading either. I'm just dipping into solid black. But if I've got my machine running really low, then I can still do a smooth fade, even using some solid black. And you know, when I'm doing a portrait or something, I definitely use gray wash. But if it's something that is like a Japanese piece where it is really supposed to go from dark to light, I don't mind working and shading with solid black. I just turn my machine down a little bit and keep it soft. And as you can see, like the direction I go, I work from dark to light and just start out a little bit deeper at the line where I begin and go softer as I feather my fade out. some of the time when I'm filling in the background of a tattoo like this, I can get lost in the lines. So you saw me pause there for a moment trying to figure out, okay, where is the difference between the shadow and the flame part? But anyway, I figured it out. But just know, if you get lost in your tattoo sometime, it's okay, it's normal. Just sit back, take a minute, don't freak out, reset where you are, and make sure that you're not coloring something wrong by all means. Just take your time, be patient. So what we just ended with the clouds in the background was session 1, and this is session 2 that you are watching right now. We will have one more session after this to finish, and I'll make a second video to cover the finish up. But when I began session 2, I started with doing some shading, some gray wash shading in the feathers, because first thing on my mind with this session was get the cover up started to make the Superman completely disappear. So I used a lot of shadows in the feathers to make that Superman disappear. But I had to bring some shadows up top as well, because you can't, it's hard. Sometimes when you're doing a cover-up, you'll put too much shading on the area that's being covered up and then not enough shadows other places, and it can look too dark in one place and not in another. Not look evenly. The shading cannot look even if you're not careful, so I had to make sure that I moved shadows up into the top part of the phoenix as well, even though it wasn't necessary, but it helps it to balance. I've put some burgundy into some of the feathers on the wings, and then I used solid red for the red tones up in the top of the phoenix's head. Still using the 15 curved mag, running my machine around 5 volts or so. After I added the red, I went in with some orange to accent the back of the phoenix's head, the feathers coming off of the phoenix's head. I used the edge of my machine to get into all of those corners. Yeah, you can turn your mag sideways and use it to get into, some really, really tiny places. I could have used a liner to fill all of those, to fill that little groove right there, but it did just fine with the mag. So you can color little tiny spaces with that too. Okay, so like I said before, he did not want it to all be reds and oranges. So we went with some blues and purple, a little bit of purple. Here I'm using purple concentrate to work into the shadows of some of the feathers to help with the cover up. So I wanted some purple, but I think purple concentrate is the only purple that I used in this tattoo. It just gave some depth to the shadows. I didn't want the shadows to just be the gray wash. I like to put another color tone over my shadows, because it simply doesn't look right if you simply leave it as a gray wash. If there's always a little bit of skin color showing through, and it never looks quite right. After the purple concentrate was added to all the feathers, I went back and made a second layer of red over those top smaller feathers up towards the top. You can still see the Superman showing through a little bit. That will get taken care of very soon. I wanted a contrasting color, and as I said before, blue works with fire. There's blue color in flames, so having a little bit of purple and blue in this phoenix seemed to be fitting just fine. And blue is an excellent color for a cover-up. And because it contrasts so well with the red, it will really, really cover up that old tattoo beneath it. Contrast is key with a good, successful cover-up. You can do something like a portrait and use it as a cover-up if the contrast is harsh enough. So just keep that in mind. If you figure out a way to make your contrast turned up, then it will probably work as a cover-up. It's got a good chance at it anyway. So the red and the blue contrast here in the tail of the Phoenix, that works wonderfully to make the old Superman disappear. The bottom part of the wing was going to have some more blue, so I had, as I said, already put a little purple concentrate in there, and I went with some cobalt blue to add, so for it to fade from purple to cobalt blue on the bottom of those wings. And then, of course, went back in with that lighter blue, same as we touched up those top feathers with, and that completes the cover-up on this portion of the wing. Then it was time to repeat the process with the back feathers. Yeah, I added the cobalt blue and then went in with the light blue. Once I get the orange flames finished up in the background, that blue and orange contrast will be really fantastic. All that we got finished in this session was the feathers on the birds. A couple of feathers left that I have to do. The one on the very bottom of the tail does not get finished, and there's another one poking out from behind his chest that I didn't finish either. But I'm going to get this client back in the chair as soon as I can and get this finished, because I really just, I don't know, I have a soft spot for Asian tattoos. I find them beautiful and classic, and I don't think they'll ever go out of style. It's traditional is the same way. I feel like these classic tattoo styles, if they are done well, they will look good for the rest of your life. So without this being a whole rainbow effect, it turned out to be a beautiful Phoenix, and I'm very happy with it. Very soon, I will, hopefully within the next month, I will get him back in to finish this last session, and I'll make a video, get it all posted up for you guys. So thank you for watching today, and I will see you next week.